But without further ado, let's welcome our panelists to the stage.
Just to check, this is on? Okay. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Excited to have this conversation, and it feels like it could be kind of a heavy conversation, but I think we're going to try to keep it a little bit optimistic in thinking about how do we look forward and how do we protect ourselves here. So my name is Jonathan Meneses. I am a group product manager at a mental health care company called Firsthand. Work remotely, have been in a number of different product jobs, and started my career out in consulting before making the jump. Joined on stage with Danielle. Danielle, do you want to tell us a little about yourself?
I would love to. I'm Danielle Maravellis. I am the Director of Product Management at Synapse Health. We work in the Medicare space, and I've been in product for about 8 years now, so a little bit of time under my belt.
Awesome. And Brad?
Hi, everybody. I'm Brad, Senior Director. So I lead product management and UX at Kendra Scott. I've been there just a few months, but been in this field for a while. I think product management before it was a thing. I was in marketing and customer care, and then started to build technology and got into it that way. So I'm excited to hopefully share some points today that will be valuable with all of you.
Awesome. Well, excited to get started. So after a barbecue lunch, it's probably a little bit hard to stay energetic, so we will be looking at each and every one of you to stay awake. There's no napping in this session today. So starting the conversation, thinking through it, pretty broad panel topic we can talk about it being a product manager in an uncertain world, and something that we were talking about as a panel was how do you define different types of uncertainty? So Danielle, I know kind of thinking through your past experience, you've got a pretty recent event that would be thinking about an uncertain event. So do you want to tell us about that and how you think about different types of uncertainty?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, I've been in product for a really long time. Right around Christmas time, I had a call with my boss and the HR manager, expecting my promotion to director, and was unfortunately laid off, which was kind of a blind side. I did not think that it was going to happen to me. I thought I was extremely essential to the business. All of my progress, all of my outputs were really amazing, made some incredible transformations. But that day I found out that that didn't really matter. And I was let go.
It mattered.
Oh no, it did matter. It didn't matter to some people, but it mattered to me. And so that was, I had been hearing about my friends being laid off. I'm on LinkedIn, very active, and so that's been kind of very present on the feed for months and months and months. I just thought I was really insulated. And so for me, that uncertainty, I guess in this particular case, played out resulting in a layoff. Another example I could give is that in other companies that I've worked at, there's been a lot of reorgs, a lot of restructures, either new leadership coming in or lines of business that hadn't been doing really well for a while were the catalysts for some of those changes. And I would say often, I think for most people, the writing's not always on the wall, and when it is, you kind of get out of there beforehand. But I guess those are the two examples I can give of uncertainty.
Yeah. Thank you, Brad. You want to tell us about maybe some experiences?
Well, I think just the environment for a lot of us, right? This is a real example here in the room, and there may be others, but for a lot of us, just the noise that's in the media every day makes you wonder how certain your job is, right? It was 4 years ago almost, maybe 5 now total, that Amazon acquired Whole Foods, and I was there at the time. And the vision that we all had about where the company was going changed overnight, and the leadership changed overnight. And so it made me begin to reflect on, what are the things that I can control, and what are the things that I can do better every day, and know that there is always going to be some uncertainty in the world, and I may not always be able to control it, but keep setting goals for yourself that help you control what you can control. But certainly right now, it's relevant for me. I'm a few months in at a new company, and you kind of wonder how you're faring, and are there some headwinds coming at your company that you didn't see when you started? And so I think that's a little bit more we want to try to dig into today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to talk about the fact that uncertainty doesn't always have to be a negative outcome for uncertainty either. I think if we look back, retail is a great example of, look back in March of 2020, retail kind of took a nosedive for a little bit, but consumer spending came rearing back pretty quickly after. And so, thinking through both positive and negative uncertainties in a market, I think we talked a little bit about macro uncertainty here, talked about some company uncertainty of, like, really when you think through how potentially at risk your career is. Danielle, you mentioned that there were no signs, or you didn't think that there were any signs. Maybe can you walk me through, like, looking back, hindsight's 2020, but how do you think about, maybe doing a thing that product managers are familiar with, a retro on this? Like, let's retro that a little bit. Like, is there anything that you could have seen or something that might have been a sign for you that there was some uncertainty coming?
Yes. In hindsight, yes. So leading up to the layoff, and I should preface this, an acquisition had happened earlier in the year. So a completely new leadership team came in and was responsible for managing a number of different brands, one of them being the one that I worked on. And it was, again, in hindsight, now it's glaringly obvious. When you continue to ask for certain things that you expect to be there, should be in place, business strategy, new product strategy, or even some sort of guiding pillars and principles. And if that question remains unanswered each time, that's probably an indication that they don't really have it figured out yet either. And so, like, what is that going to mean for other people in the future? Great question. It could mean that they're being really intentional and taking their time and developing these really amazing strategies and plans, or it could just mean that it's not a priority and they're shifting course. So I think that was one of the things in hindsight. I think that was probably the biggest red flag that I ignored. I was very optimistic. I was extremely excited when we got acquired because it meant new possibilities, new capital, new teams. It meant a lot of things. And so I think I'm not trying to say don't be optimistic, but be realistically optimistic. Don't get the rose-colored glasses, or you have to get through that honeymoon phase when big changes happen. So I guess just keep a watchful eye and continue to ask questions. And if you're not getting the answers, that could be an indication.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thanks for sharing. And thinking about being on the other side of that, Danielle, would you say, looking back, that you feel like you might have grown from that experience, from being laid off to this point?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, the biggest takeaway from the layoff was how much I need to show up for the people that are on my teams and the people that I lead, and be very transparent and be very empathetic. So having those two things, being transparent and being empathetic, can allow those conversations to happen earlier on. You can help prepare people. And I guess one of the things that, I was in my own boat, right? Like trying to find my next move and whatnot, but I had a whole team, an entire team, engineers, QA testers, product owners, data scientists. I mean, my entire tech team was let go as well. And still I was like, okay, I need to step up to the plate for them as well. Like, let's help them find jobs. Let me write you letters of recommendation. Let me do these small things that mean a lot, like a lot. Resume reviews, interview prep, all of that. I didn't get that, and I think that was a good reflection of the type of leader I don't ever want to be, and that's also something that I want to look for in leadership wherever I go in the future.
Yeah, super helpful. Thanks for sharing. And Brad, you're a leader of product teams now. So, like, how do you think about, if someone's maybe thinking, I don't know what the future is, how do you think about what growth looks like, or charting your own growth path?
I think what's important, and a lesson I kind of learned, is that a lot of leaders talk to you about investing your whole self at work. Don't invest your whole self, right? I mean, you need to invest in your career while you're at work too, right? You need to be actively thinking about what it is that you're going to do to continue to make yourself more marketable, because even the best leaders may not always be in control, right? Like both these acquisition stories we have, when somebody comes along and writes a check, they're no longer in control. It's time for the new company to come in and make the decisions that they're going to make. And so a lot of what I talk to my team about is preparing yourself and having a career plan that helps them continue to feel enriched and rewarded, and making sure they're making time for themselves every week to get on LinkedIn and continue to build your network and make sure your resume is up to date. And I don't want to say it in a way that scares them. I want to say it in a realistic way, because I don't want them, like you mentioned, to be a team of people that you care about and we're all blindsided all at once and we all feel completely unprepared.
Yeah, super helpful. Thanks, Brad. And at the risk of this conversation being a always be looking for a new job conversation, I think we can probably take maybe another angle of this too. Of, let's say you're maybe a product manager or someone in a product org that you're not quite ready for another company or a new job, but you're not quite sure what comes next for you at your current role. How would you kind of think about coaching a product manager or thinking through what are the things that I need to be doing to grow myself and make sure that I am growing and essential to the company that I'm a part of?
It's almost cheating, but you've heard all the answers so far today, really. I mean, I had a lot of points that I wanted to talk about, and then they just got nailed by speaker after speaker after speaker, right? It's like, show your empathy, right? And be empathetic to your customer. Be empathetic to other people. Somebody else talked a lot about working across new teams. Like, lean into other departments and learn more about what your business is about. Show up and that you can be valuable, right? Listen to what the problems they're having. And you may not be able to build it into your product roadmap, but sometimes just little unlocks that you can give somebody, little tricks that you might have learned in your career about how to do something is a major unlock for them. But you never know that if you don't build those relationships. I heard somebody else mention, lean in more into the data and better understand your customer journey. For a lot of you, depending upon the size company you are and how you're structured, the product may not contain the entire customer journey, but a lot more of what we want to look at is that full, from acquisition all the way through retention or exit, if that's the worst case, right? And understand that journey and that mapping and where you can play a part in that and add value. And another great one I heard in one of the other talks earlier today was like, get out there and talk about these numbers with your other business partners. Make sure if you have some sort of CX or UX tool that shows user behavior, that other parts of your business can benefit from that data that may not have it. We're a jewelry retailer, and a lot of the questions that we get asked about the people that actually design the physical products are, what are the searches that show up on your website with no results? Like, what are customers coming for and looking in the jewelry categories for our brand that we don't currently have? And we want to loop that back to the design team and start building those products, or making a conscious business decision that maybe it's not a place to play for it. But we have a lot of those signals, so I really think that the speakers before set the table for us. I'd like to replay some of their decks. They really made some great points.
Yeah, that's great. Thinking about the future and chasing what could be versus feeling like you need to fulfill certain job responsibilities. That's a really great answer, Brad. Danielle, how do you think about growing a career or think about what skills you might need to grow?
So I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Especially as product management roles have grown and evolved, particularly over the last 5 years. Product managers are touted as the can do anything and everything people, right? You're supposed to be a specialist in every single area, and then still be a master of product management. But what I've found that's kind of pinned me in a corner, and not the corner I wanted to be in, was that I didn't really have a special superpower that I was like the expert on that could propel me into my future roles. And so a couple years ago, I started thinking about like who am I then? Like, who do I want to be, and how do I want to position myself, and how do I want to become like the best in this area? And I think that's a really good way to prep and get product managers ready for future careers and future roles, is helping them find what really excites them. Like, what is the one thing, like, anytime, they get an opportunity to dig into it, they go head first, and they could just do it for days and days and days, or years and years and years, no qualms. So I would say find what excites the product manager, like a specialty area. It could be that they really love consumer insights, like obsessed with consumer insights to the point where they might not, they might be joining organizations that don't have dedicated teams yet. Or it could be that this particular individual has more of a focus and a deeper understanding of user experience design, or designing customer experiences. It could be, I could go on, but one of the many like dimensions of product management, if there are one or two that you can kind of hone in on and really start to develop those skills, I think when you can stand out and shine in those areas, that makes you really valuable in the future. It doesn't mean disregard your other areas or the other dimensions of product management. It just means be good at those, but be great at these.
Yeah, amazing. And I think that follows an idea or a concept of spikes for product managers where you go deep in an area and that's your specialty. So Brad, I'd love to hear about, maybe in retail and at Kendra Scott, when you're looking for product managers or in a specific role, what type of spikes do you look for? And does that differ from different types of industries or markets that you might be in?
Yeah, great question. I think to the point you were just making, a lot of it is about your team, right? What are the, I think of it in terms of T-shaped skills. I don't know if that's a concept that resonates with all of you, where you're broad in many things, but you're deep in one area. So I look a lot about what my team has, and if I'm hiring somebody new, I want to fill in any gaps that we might have. And if I can't hire, then we're trying to figure out if somebody's passionate about a certain area, how can we help them be deeper in that area, because that's going to help them grow, and then that obviously benefits the team. But using a sports analogy, we don't need the exact same position 10 times on the team. We need different players to fill out the team and cover the areas that we need. So I think somebody said it earlier, it just depends, right? I mean, it's a lot about what your team is and what skills you're missing is what I look for when I'm hiring.
Yeah, makes sense. Maybe to get some free coaching and get on the therapy couch up here. I'm probably one of the more junior presenters as far as product experience goes on the stage. And so, thinking through someone like myself trying to make a decision of, do you want to continue to be an individual contributor, or do I think about moving to a team manager type role, or there's these hybrid roles of group managers somewhere in the middle? Thinking about what the right role is for me feels just as uncertain of how do I want to grow with where I am. So maybe if you want to give me some free advice, I'll take it. Sure. Danielle,
Yeah.
Maybe let's start with you, Danielle. Like how would you think about whether someone is set on a path or should be thinking about whether they want to move to a people manager or an individual contributor type role?
I'm a firm believer in experimentation, so try. If you want to be an individual contributor and you're not in that type of a role now, find a way to get more involved and be hands-on with something. If you are an individual contributor and you want to have more of a leadership role, find ways, whether that's within your own organization, whether that's spinning up passion projects and forming teams on your own, getting involved with different organizations that do some of these types of things as well, passion projects and whatnot, and try it out, because there's that old adage that the grass isn't always greener on the other side, and that's true, but you don't ever know until you can go over there and check it out. There are some obvious trade-offs between both types of positions, but I think a really good way to get even deeper insight is just to talk to people who have made those transitions. I know a ton of managers who went back to being individual contributors because they did not like the people leadership. It was a burden, it's an emotional burden, and it's not for everybody. And sometimes they can do their best work when it's in an individual contributor role. And then other individual contributors, like myself, I had a very difficult time. I was kind of grappling with okay, if I'm in leadership, that means I have to give up all of this stuff. But for me, it was a greater reward to be able to help develop and mold people that could be individual contributors and hopefully get them onto a management, it doesn't matter, whatever path they wanted to go on, but helping to get them wherever they needed to be.
Yeah, well, I think that's actually a good thing just to dig in for a second. Then Brad, would love to hear from you in a second here, but it's interesting to feel like at some point someone thinks about saying, I'm going from an individual contributor to a people manager role, but the question is, does someone have to think about that? Would you say as you grow in your product career, there's a point that you have to be a people manager?
I I don't think so. I mean, for me, I just kind of like nudged my way into it. But I guess, let me clarify the question. So is there a way for people to be managers without being people managers?
Or as a product manager, is the only path in growth to eventually be a people manager?
No. Okay, thank you for clarifying. No, I think there's a number of different types of manager positions. Some is direct people leadership, where you're focusing on growing your team, nurturing your team, developing your team. Other times that management position is a little bit more focused on the actual, whether it's product portfolio or suite, and more of the product operations. And then that's also a good segue into these new product ops manager roles as well. So there's a lot of different flavors. Again, it's so wildly different across every organization. The definition of product in general, the definition of product roles, and then, each organization adapts to their own needs. So you really have to dig in and do some research, and the best way to do that is just talk with people. If you have favorite organizations or companies, or just people that you've heard speaking at conferences, like just tap them, ask them some questions, be very intentional about what you're asking, but that's probably the best way to get a good feel of the many different types of roles out there.
Yeah, really great. Thank you for sharing that. So Brad, a couple of questions kind of plugged in there.
Yeah. I think the first one was offering you career advice, right? So
Yeah, let's get back to
get
that.
back to you. Let's get back to you. I think I loved everything that you said, and I think that something that's helped me sometimes is from a tool perspective is looking at job descriptions so that you can begin to understand what the differences and the expectations are, and then start to build a career plan or a career map for that individual of how they might get from where they are. And then build in some ways that they can grow those skills, right? So if you're trying to get into leadership but you don't have leadership experience, can you have leadership without direct authority, right? Could you lead a committee that does something, whatever that thing is, right? And give them a taste of what leadership is like. And as you rightly called out, it's not a one-way door, right? You're going to have the opportunity to switch careers, right? If you try leadership for a few years and you don't, if you're an engineer, you may need to brush up on your coding skills a little bit, but product management discipline doesn't change so radically over 2 years that you couldn't just walk back into a product management type role if leadership wasn't working for you. I think you made some great points too about the company structure really varies, and I've seen some companies, obviously larger companies, where you can get into very advanced senior principal architect type roles where you might lead a community of practice, or you might lead the discipline of product management there without direct responsibility. So that could give you a career path if that's the size company that you are. But if you're at a smaller company, you may run into a situation where you can't grow your salary anymore. You could probably continue to grow your scope, right? Because scope and influence are things that you have control of based on how you interact with other people. Respect and trust that they have for you may lend it to where you can move into other departments and do other things, but I think a smaller or mid-sized company, you may actually hit some sort of financial ceiling where you would be forced to make a choice one way or the other at that company, or you'd need to leave that company and go somewhere where there was more upward progression in terms of staying in the product management discipline. So do you want to do a career plan after this?
I'd love to. I'll get your number on this one.
Yeah, okay, cool. Should we do a stand-up barbecue break? We're almost halfway through, yeah?
Yeah.
Everybody just stand up for a minute.
Everybody up?
Shake it around.
Everybody up? Hands above your head.
There's a place south of here, if you're not from Austin, called the Salt Lick, and they're famous for all-you-can-eat barbecue. So literally people will go into meat comas and sweat after a few hours of barbecue there, yeah.
Please no meat comas today.
Well, Brad, I want to dig into a little bit of something you just said of being ready for the next role that you're at. And I heard, or I was listening to a podcast, I can't say which one, but someone introduced me to the idea of the Peter Principle. Is anyone familiar with that, the Peter Principle? Yeah, it's the concept of middle managers at many companies, that you've got this persona that might be named Peter. And he's just stuck in middle management. And the kind of theory here is that with modern day competencies and hiring, people rise to their level of inability. So you're promoted because you're doing well, at the current job you're in, not necessarily because you'll be doing well at the job that you are going to. And so, maybe thinking through it, and it feels like, I was thinking about talking through growth conversations with my manager. He said that his philosophy is really saying, I want to see you doing the job that you're going to get promoted in for 6 months before you get promoted into that job. And so, maybe thinking about like, how does someone that is thinking about, making a jump, whether it's through individual contributor or people manager, how do you think about what that yeah, those are my AirPods how do you think about knowing like when you're ready or if you should be pushing for what that next role is versus, maybe saying I've got time to grow in my current role?
That's a live question, isn't it, man? I mean, it's depending upon where you are in the different phases of your life, right? Like I can remember when my kids were small, I wasn't as active in growing my career because I wanted a more life balance and a less work balance, right? Now my kids are all in college and I'm more interested in trying to get back and grow it. So I think it's always important to kind of check yourself and know where you are. Maybe financially you need to be promoted for whatever reasons. And I think that although I'm not familiar with the Peter Principle, what I was thinking that it was going to be about was more do the job that you want before you get it, right? Because if you're out there and you're actively showing those skills, when a promotion opportunity comes up, you've exhibited those skills as opposed to sitting back and waiting for somebody to give you a promotion opportunity, because that rarely happens. So one of the counseling things and coaching things I talk a lot with my team about is in the career plan, it's making that career plan transparent to other people. It's letting them know that you're working towards something that's bigger, especially the boss that's in charge of promotion, or if you have a promotion panel at work and you have a good sense of who those other leaders are going to be. It's starting 6 or 9 months away from when you think they're going to be ready for the promotion, and you're advocating for your team members and you're making sure that people know and that they're showing up. And then, a little nod every once in a while, like, oh yeah, did you see Danielle did that thing we've been talking about? Like, that's exactly the behavior we want to see in somebody at the next level, right? And so it's being an advocate and then also giving them that expectation, right, that I'm here to help you do the plan and I'm here to advocate for you, but it's also your job to put in the work. I think that's an important message, right? Because I can only support you as much time as you want to put into it, right? I can't put the time in for you, but I can be here to answer your questions and mentor you or find a mentor for you. So I think those are some of the things that I think about in what, I think is important in helping somebody grow their career. And like you said earlier, showing up in the role before anyone's even thinking about promoting you, or there's a promotion opportunity, right? I think the flip side of that is if you're doing that good work and the promotion opportunity doesn't come around, be looking for some of those signals, like there is no strategy at the company, there is no year plan, because something's going on if a company's not wanting to promote people that are doing a level above that's clear and visible to the organization, and that could be a signal that you need to move on.
Yeah, thank you. Super helpful. Danielle, do you want to give us an answer?
Yeah, I before I lose my train of thought, I did want to highlight the advocacy piece. So for all the product leaders and future product leaders in the room, I think the number one thing that you can do to be most helpful to your teams is bring their names up in rooms when they're not present. Like, highlight them. Any chance you can get. I mean, don't be weird about it, but like highlight them often and just be the person that is going to bat for them, because your influence is going to have such a large impact on it. Like, just speaking from the female lens, being in tech, I've gotten overlooked for so many promotions. I've gotten overlooked for so many things because my leaders were not going to bat for me. My leaders were not standing up there for me. And so, like, for me, that's the one thing I can always do. Now, like you said, like, let's get people on a plan. Like, let's be very intentional about it. Figure out, and this is going to sound a little rigid, but I use like a competency matrix where I'm saying, here are all the key core dimensions and competencies that you need to be successful in this role, and versus this role, versus this role. And so as I work with my product owners and product managers, I can then say, okay, great. You are like doing really good here. We need to get you some experience here. And so like, let's get you on this project with a different cross-functional team. Let's get you more ownership over the analytics. Let's, whatever it looks like. But start putting them in those positions and delegating out work, because people that want it, like truly want it, they're hungry for it, they want to learn. And so they're teachable, they're trainable, and that's where you can start backing off from some of your, prior responsibilities and ownership and handing that off, and you're doing them a great service in teaching and learning and growing and career development, and you're also going to be able to free up some of your time as well, so you can continue to focus on other areas of growth.
Yeah, awesome, thank you. We've got a good question on the screen here, but before we get to that, I want to actually ask you about something you said, Danielle, or following up on saying people's names in the rooms that they're in, and having, it sounds like a manager that is advocating for you. Maybe as someone that might be on the other side, how would I know or think about if someone is advocating for me? Maybe as a direct report, like what are signs that I have a manager that can be an advocate for me and is being an advocate for me? And maybe if I don't have one, what do I do? Brad, do you want to start with that?
Sure. I'm a big fan of healthy confrontation, right? I believe in being direct at work and direct with the people and managing up. That's a phrase people use a lot. So I think that when you're talking to your leader and you're telling them that you want to be promoted and they're putting together a plan and the plan calls for them advocating for you and they're clearly not doing that, have that conversation, right? Like, I thought this was our plan. When you set expectations with each other and people agree to those expectations, then it's fair to hold people accountable to those expectations, right? When you don't communicate them or they don't agree, then it's not fair to hold them accountable. But once you do have that agreement, it's fair to hold people accountable. And so I think I would ask those questions of, I feel like I'm showing up, am I not doing a good job, and that's why you don't feel comfortable advocating for me? Or are there some politics at the office that I'm not aware of? Or is there a reason why my name's not getting mentioned? And so I think being direct, because you're not, my mom told me something a long time ago, you don't ever get anything you don't ask for, right? And if you're not asking for that and you're not getting the feedback on it, then that tells you that you might be in a dysfunctional relationship with the leader, right? Or the leader might not be a quality leader. And maybe that's the Peter principle. I'll have to read about this whole Peter thing later. But I think that's a real thing, right? And then you've got to make your choice about that. And it kind of goes back to the beginning where I was talking about controlling what you can control. If you get in that situation, don't let yourself get bogged down. I mean, I know the news is out there that people are losing their jobs. There's a lot of people hiring, though. And so you need to be somewhere that's going to be healthy for you to grow your career and where you have the right support from leaders. I think that gets to your whole question. Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. And Danielle, let's kind of take a spin on that there with Brad. You're going to have hard conversations as a product manager, and maybe with the manager, maybe talk through like how to have hard conversations. It feels like a very difficult thing to learn. How do you go about having these hard conversations?
Practice. Practice.
Start with your cat or your dog, because they can't answer
They
back.
can't, yeah, they'll give you the most neutral feedback ever. So having hard conversations is, I'm sure there's some people that enjoy it, but most people do not enjoy it. It's uncomfortable, there's tension, right? We get in our heads about it, and we have all this anxiety about how the other person's going to receive it or react, or, what if I say the wrong thing, or what if I forget something? I think as uncomfortable as it is, you just got to dive into it. A framework that I've used that's been particularly helpful is when I want to bring something up, I state whatever I'm feeling or internalizing as my own personal observation. So I've observed that blank, right? And when blank happens, this is how it impacts me, this is how I feel. Can you please help me understand like where you were coming from or why this decision was made? And so I try to approach it from a place of curiosity. That helps neutralize that, right? There's no accusations there, really. You're just stating an observation and how how it made you feel, and also acknowledging that you might be internalizing it a little bit differently. And that opens up the floor for a more productive conversation.
This is where you really find out if your leader has EQ or not.
Yes,
right? I mean,
very
if
good
they
point.
can't handle this feeling conversation, you know there's an opportunity for their growth.
Yeah, sometimes I would say in most cases I've been met with just very open conversation. And it's almost always been a misunderstanding, or they were just really not aware. They were aloof to the fact that an action had an impact. So for the other person, it's a learning opportunity. For you personally, it's a growth opportunity, right? So maybe that experience can teach you not to have so much anxiety around it, right? It's easy. Just don't have anxiety around it. Just don't think about it. But you can take it, and like that's another tool in your toolkit. That's another experience. So maybe the next time you have those conversations, they get a little bit easier and a little bit easier. But the one thing that I found that it did was it actually strengthened my relationships with people, because they knew I wasn't going to come at them and point fingers. It allowed us to have more open conversations going forward. And it's actually just really productive. Now, you're always going to have that one guy, right? That's the low
Probably
EQ
a guy.
Sorry.
Probably a guy.
And that person is probably, unfortunately, it's going to be years and years before you can probably have productive conversations with them. So find a way maybe to not have conversations with them if you can. And if you have to have conversations with them, then maybe take a more structured approach and document your feedback, unfortunately.
Yeah, super
Yeah, and if I
helpful.
can, just playing off that a little bit, I love the feelings thing. It's a huge opportunity, right? Because there's no judgment in that. You're not telling them that what they said to you made you feel that way. They also don't have the power to take away from you that that's how you feel. Like I have the right to feel how I want to feel and how I feel in the moment. And I'm telling you that how when you did that to me, it made me feel that way. Now you can get to a point of expectations. If you don't want to make me feel that way, then don't do that again, right? And if you do want to make me feel that way, I'll know that you're doing it intentionally. And then now we're to the point where we can talk about accountability, right? Because we've had that moment, but it's not about blame. Like I'm not telling you that you intentionally did that. I'm just saying that that's how I felt, and I have a right to feel the way I want to feel. So that's a beautiful point.
Yeah. A book that my manager recommended to me was Crucial Conversations. Really amazing book that I'd really recommend. And something in there that the author talks about is like starting with facts and then not telling or starting with the story that you're telling yourself. So I think similar to what you're saying, Brad and Danielle, of, here's the fact of what happened, and not knowing exactly what you meant or what you felt. Here's the story that I'm telling myself about that situation. But really recommend that book if anyone is looking for it. My wife's actually in the room, and she was really upset because I said using techniques for us to have hard discussions when we're arguing here. So really valuable book that helps in all areas of life.
Yeah. Additionally, so that framework that I was talking about, I cannot for the life of me remember who came up with the framework, but it's from Commitment-Based Management, or CBM. That's just like one of the first things you learn in that framework, but it's definitely the thing that I have carried with me for years.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. We got 2 questions. Let's go to those. So knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself at the beginning of your product career? Who wants to start?
I can.
Yeah.
Knowing what I know now, I would have pushed open more doors. I didn't realize it was so easy. But I told myself that it was going to be hard, and I had to struggle, and I needed to go through this really long tenure before I'd be good enough to go into the next position. That is total, excuse my language, bullshit. You can skill up so fast, and if you have the right people supporting you and teaching you and advocating for you, you got it. Now, those people aren't always going to be your boss or your manager or even people within your own organization. So I want to make that very clear too. A lot of the support, the best support that I've gotten over the years, they've never been my coworkers. They've been other people in product management. They've been at other organizations in other industries. And they have been so gracious and kind and patient and helped me build up this success toolkit that nobody's ever going to be able to take away from me. You know, if I leave a job, it's not like it stays there, right? It goes with me forever. So I think that's what I would tell myself, and I'm telling all of you too.
Curiosity strikes me, especially listening to some of the other speakers here today. Be curious, right? Thinking about the different speakers' paths. I know my path was kind of a windy one, but also be curious about the business that you're in. I think you can do yourself a disservice if you don't understand the ecosystem in which you operate, right? You can get maniacally focused on the product without understanding what the business actually is, right? Is the business helping people get better healthcare? Is the business retailing jewelry in retail stores? Whatever it is, understand that. I think something probably the younger self should have heard is you don't have to be the smartest person in the room, or don't try to be the smartest person in the room. Like, really understand that there's a lot of value in letting other voices be heard, especially voices that don't often get heard, right? Create space for the other people around you, and you're going to learn a lot from them, but it's also going to let them hear their voice and raise their voice in meetings, which ultimately, if we think about, most of us serve a very multicultural, multigender customer base. It lets those voices be heard in the decision-making room, right? As a white guy, the bunch of white guys sitting around having ideas about how something's going to be, it's hard to serve a multicultural, multigender marketplace, right? So I think letting those voices be heard would be something else that resonates with me a lot.
Yeah, thanks. You know, something that I think about a lot now, being a couple years into my product career, is that looking for new product jobs, like, it's, if you've seen one product job or had one product job, you've had one product job. Like, every company does product differently, and if you make the assumption that, like, product management here is the same as product management there, like, you're going to be sorely disappointed for it. You know, I now work in healthcare in a tech-enabled services company that we build software for, our product team builds software for the healthcare providers that we employ. My day-to-day experience is very different than a B2C product manager somewhere else. And I think assuming that the type of job or the things you spike on as you talk about hard skills is the same thing that every product manager or future job needs to spike on is not actually the case as we think through that. Okay, so next question here, and feel free to keep adding questions as we have a couple more minutes. We can also just keep riffing up here too. But
Yeah, we can go around the room and ask the sleepiest looking person a question.
yeah, that's good. Call someone out directly. Thoughts on the idea of after 2 years at a place, it's either up or out. So the up or out mentality. What do we think about that?
Depends. It depends on where you are. So I want to make a caveat to this. So you could go up, meaning whether that's going from product owner to product manager, or product owner to product analyst, or product manager to director, you know, many of the other titles that fall in between. You could go up. Depending on what stage of growth your company is in, too, there might be more of an interim or in-between lateral move where you're starting to bridge relationships between sales, between marketing, between other cross-functional areas of the business. Again, it totally depends on, like, what products you sell, what your audience is, what industry you're in. But after 2 years, I think you should know, it's kind of like a relationship, right? It is a relationship. But after 2 years, you should know, is this somewhere that you want to be? Or is it time to grow your wings and fly out? So I think 2 years is a good time frame, but, like, I'm going to also caveat that with don't torture yourself. If you know after 6 months that it's up or out, it's probably just better to go out. So, like, don't time. I know we like to time box everything, but don't time box your career. Like, follow it. This is cheesy, but, like, follow it with your heart. Like, if you feel like this is the place for you, if you love the organization, if you love the mission, if you love the people, that means a lot. I mean, from personal experience, I could have job hopped early on in my career. I could have job hopped and made a lot more money, but I loved our mission. I loved the people I worked with, and that was, like, the most valuable thing. And I stuck it out for longer than I needed to. It was more like 4 years, but I kept getting blocked at the up stage, and that's when I just knew it was time to go out. I gave it a real good try for 2 more years than what we're using in the example.
Brad, what about you as a manager of people, thinking through like someone has been in the same role for 2 years? How do you think about their development there?
Obviously, if I can't create the opportunity, then I want to help them get out, right? I mean, in a warm, nice, friendly way, right? I mean, as a leader, I want people to be happy, and if happiness means a promotion, and for whatever financial situation we're in, I can't offer it, then I want to use my network to help them, because maybe it's pay it forward, maybe it's a brand ambassador for you in the marketplace. There's lots of different ways to think about it, but ultimately, like as a leader, my key goal is people to be happy, right? And so if I can't make them be happy where they are, you know, I would have different answers to this question at different points in my career, right? As a younger man right out of college, I would say up and out every 2 years. Build the experience, especially if it's a RSU heavy or stock option heavy, because that's your earning potential for the rest of your life. If you stay somewhere for 10 years and get a 3% on your annual raise, which might be good for a lot of companies, or you hop and get 20% year over year, like that determines what you're going to be like when you're 50 or 60 years old, which is a big part of why we go to work. I don't think anyone works for free. So as much as I 100% agree, you want to be passionate about what you do and you want to love what you do, you also have to remember, and I'm going to tell the Amazon story again, not because I don't like Amazon, but because it's real to me, where I thought that company was going to go and the leaders that I believed in were all telling me the truth, but overnight it all changed. And I was there for 17 years, and that's something I would do differently, right? If I had known that, I wouldn't have stayed that long, because I thought the long term would be the payback. But I realize now a lot of leaders weren't in control of the long term, and I never got the payback.
Yeah.
And so I think it's where you are in your career, right? I mean, if you're younger and you want to get a lot of experience, you want to learn different techniques. To your point, every organization is going to have a different problem that they're trying to use product management to solve. So it could be if you stay in one place, you're not going to get to have as many tools in your tool belt. So from a professional standpoint, I could see, and it's tough. You know, when you get a part of friends or family at work or whatever word we like to put on that, it's hard to leave people, and you ultimately have to decide what's right for you. So my old school thing is I do a pro and con chart. I do the pros of staying and I do the cons of staying, and I try to weigh it out in some logical way, because if you rely completely on emotions, sometimes it can get the better of you.
I just wanted to say one last thought about up or out. You could also stay if you really like it. Some people don't desire to, you know, they love being an individual contributor, and that's where they're happy and that's where they want to stay. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not like you have to go up or you have to go out. Like, if you're content where you are, that's a really hard thing to find, is being happy and content. So, like, if you got it, keep doing it.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it goes, Brad, to your point of, you know, work doesn't have to be your whole life here either, and so keeping that in mind. Going to slightly skip this third question and come right back to it, because, Brad, you were talking about thinking about growing and continually making sure you're looking for an opportunity that might be growing. So, you know, it seems like there's a question in line with this of thoughts on the well, I'm totally missing this.
It just went
There we
away.
go, at the very top.
yeah.
Someone upvoted that quickly. How detrimental is it to have short stints on your resume? So maybe someone's thinking about chasing an opportunity, or
Yeah.
you're laid off and you're looking for another
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. Personally, if you guys look on my LinkedIn profile, this is my third job in less than 2 years. So all 3 jobs, people have came looking for me, though. So I'd say it kind of depends. If you're hopping, but people are looking for you, they know how long you've been at the company. They're finding you on LinkedIn. They know you've only been there 6 months, and they're still asking you to join their company. I think there's a lot less emphasis put on that. It may be culture of the company too. If the culture of the company really values people being there a long time, maybe they're more hesitant to have somebody that has moved. How many times are we going to say it depends? It depends. I think you have to decide what's right for you, and all these things can be right. I would say if you're worried about what recruiters or other companies think, you're over worrying, because I don't see that in the marketplace. Like, I still get calls about jobs, and I've only been in this job for a few months, right? And the recruiters don't care. They want somebody that has the experience to fill in the role.
I don't think it's detrimental. I think short stints or gaps is something like very close to the old school hiring mentality. I think for me, as a hiring manager, it's really important for me to understand the person's personality and open up those conversations. And honestly, I probably won't ask why you only had 6 months here or why you did this or that, but you'll reveal to me what you did during that time in our interview, and that's all I care about. What impact did you have while you were there? You know what, it could have been a contract role. It could have been I had a really toxic boss and it like totally broke me and I had to leave. It could be I just needed some time off. It could be I was exploring other career options that didn't work out. Right? There's so many different things it could be. But people will reveal the most important parts about those times when you interview them. And so personally, not detrimental. I'm also not super old school. But anybody that does like take so much weight or put so much weight on something like that, you have to ask yourself, is that somewhere I really want to work, or is that somebody I really want to work for?
Yeah, I think I'll counter a little bit, where I actually think that, short stints it depends on how short and what the stint is, and there's a pattern there where, I think if you see someone moving every 3 months you've had 3 months, 3 months, 3 months, there's probably a different story and maybe not so much intention.
Then you know you're only going to get 3 months out of them,
Yeah.
so don't be surprised.
Yeah, put them on a quick project, right? Like, there you go. But, for me, I actually, before I was at my current company, I joined a large multinational company to help stand up a new business unit. And I was really excited about it. And I got there, and it was a totally different experience than what I thought it was. I was told, like, hey, like, we're going to stand something up new, and we're going to really be able to, move quickly and innovate in the space. But, when you get there, there's a 5-year roadmap from a consulting firm that some executive, might have. But there's some experiences like that. And, something that I thought about when really thinking through, like, is this the right move for me or not to go somewhere so quickly? And I ended up only being there, I think, 5 months, was talking with some mentors. Someone told me that, the sign of like a high performance product manager is someone that's willing to experiment and fail quickly. And I think we in product talk about quick iteration. And if you have signals that the thing you're doing isn't working, we should celebrate, failing fast or moving quickly and making decisions. And, that was something that was really helpful for me to think about is not moving without intention on it, but knowing why you're making a jump and being able to tell that story and that narrative of why you did what you did there.
That's part of hiring, right? Is it's learning that person, learning a little bit about that person, and giving them the opportunity to reveal the answer. You don't have to prompt for it. It would usually naturally comes up. But if they have a good answer, we've all been through weird stuff in our lives, right? I mean, different life events happen and cause you to make different choices than you thought you were going to make. And I think that's just being real and being human and being empathetic, right? Is understanding there's something that they're going through, and why am I here to judge it?
Yeah,
They have the skills that I need, and they show passion. I think sometimes we just kind of over-index on that. Like, you think about the average interview process is what, 3 or 4 hours of interviewing, and then you hire somebody? Like, how much do you really know about them? I mean, it's part of it is there's some percentage chance it's not going to work out, and so these things don't bother me when
Yeah.
I'm hiring.
So with just under 6 minutes left here, kind of thinking through, maybe let's shotgun some of these questions let's get through them and kind of see quick answers for it. So how to keep building your network and keeping it warm for your next career move. Danielle?
Well, you could continue to go to product-led summits
Plug,
put on
plug.
by the Product-Led Alliance. In all honesty, this is, in general, like conferences, summits, events are probably one of the best ways to meet other experts in the industry, people that you normally wouldn't get to, sit next to in a room, and just build those relationships. I have a love-hate relationship with LinkedIn. I am on it frequently, and I don't like the fact that it's like becoming Facebook, but it's super helpful. Like, it's a great way for me to keep in contact with people periodically, see what they're up to, help people find jobs, right? It's like a little marketplace for, finding people who need help, finding people that want to give help, just connecting with people in general. And so I think just be like real about it. Don't be sales pitchy about it. Keep in genuine contact with the people that you want to keep in contact to. And, I'm not saying you need to have weekly coffee chats or anything, but try to catch up every 6 months, unless it's somebody that you're like just in constant contact with. And I think that's probably the best 2 things I could say.
Agree. Yeah, I think 2 things I might add would be supporting people when they're going through the hiring process by acting as a reference, or because they're going to end up somewhere, right? And then you've paid it forward, and they may have the opportunity to pay you back. I always say yes to recruiters too. Like I answer every recruiter that calls. I may not do it that second or that day, but I get back to them and let them know I'm not interested and that I appreciate them thinking about me, and that if another opportunity comes up, please keep me in mind, because you never know, right? I mean, you never know. So those would be 2 things I would add. But yeah, all through LinkedIn, and I have my same love-hate with it. It is effective though. It's how people found me for this conference, right? So I mean, it is effective.
Yeah, something with recruiters that I try to do is, there's a lot of people looking for jobs right now, so even though I might not be looking, I try to recommend a friend or a profile of someone that might be a good fit, and that has paid a lot of dividends with just building relationships where you go from this transactional LinkedIn relationship to actually being a person on the other end of it too. So let's see. Product is a high turnover area. As a people leader, how do you suggest accomplishing company goals when the team is turning over quite often? So I guess, would you agree that product is a high turnover area? And Brad, if you're a people leader and your team's turning over, like, what do you tell your leadership team?
I have not personally experienced that. When I look at the data, I like this guy, Scott Galloway. He did one last week. I think it was the percentage of people being laid off at these big companies relative to the number of hires, and it was something like Amazon's hired 750,000 people in the last 2 years, and they laid off 18,000, right? So as a percentage, that's a lot of turnover if you're one of those people, and I'm not trying to sound like I'm not empathetic, but as a percentage, if we're data-driven people, that's not that great to me. I personally haven't experienced, but what I do try to talk about with my team, because I know they are nervous because that news is there, like, again, what can you do to control where you're going to go, and what can we do to make sure that you're feeling fulfilled and rewarded each day, and that we can make the anxiety level as low as I possibly can by letting you know you're doing a good job and getting feedback that you're doing a good job and helping you prepare the best you can for whatever's next, which could be another company, could be another promotion, could be.
Yeah. So maybe in the last 2 minutes here, if we want to wrap up, maybe would love to hear kind of things that we've talked about today. If you were talking to someone, sitting out here thinking about how do I grow, or what is the next thing that I should be doing to grow, any quick recommendations for the one thing that you should be doing?
Talking with other people and asking them to help you figure it out, because that's one of the hardest questions you can ask yourself. So to have somebody help you facilitate that thought process and help talk you through some of it and explore different areas, you're going to get there quicker. And I don't mean to make it sound like a one-step process. It's like something you have to continue to revisit over time. So coming up with, kind of like what you would do with a direct manager, maybe like a career exploration, and coming up with different areas to explore, or at least coming up with different things to focus on each time you talk. This is a great thing to do with a mentor, a coach, a colleague, some stranger on LinkedIn. You can message me if you want. I love talking to people about that, but I also need it. I'm gonna give a shout out to Dan Corbin over here. But we had some conversations well, what am I gonna do now? And he helped talk me through a ton of things, and that was super helpful. It's don't rely on yourself and yourself alone. Reach out to your people.
Yeah, Brad?
I love the networking and physical and personal connection. That's awesome. I would kind of tackle the AI question with the same thing. I have a philosophy that AI won't replace you. Somebody that uses AI will replace you. So learn how to use AI and figure out how to use it to your advantage. I don't think it's ever going to take over the power that we have and the creativity that we have as human beings, but I think learning that and figuring out how to integrate it into your tool set will make you less susceptible.
Yeah, shout out to Dan Corbin for actually just putting a post on how product managers can use AI here. So check him out on LinkedIn, everybody.
I also think he has a roundtable discussion on it tomorrow too.
There we go.
Just
So-
FYI.
well, thank you for the great questions
Yeah,
and discussion,
thank you,
everyone.
guys.
Appreciate it. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks
here.
for everybody keeping their head up. Yeah.